Dobrý den, dámy a pánové. Evropa řeší dostupnost léčivých přípravků.
Europe is talking about accessibility of medical products, those that are safe and accessible, available, and we are living through a special situation, COVID, and now we are in war, and that's why the topic is even more important. And it is closely related to the fact how Europe is able to develop and design own applications. And this is exactly the topic of today's meeting, which is the protection of intellectual property. I would like to welcome you at our roundtable focusing on the IP protection. Allow me to welcome our speakers, those that are here with us physically: Silvana Jakoba, the Deputy Minister of the Section of the Economic Policy and Entrepreneurship of the Ministry of Industry and Trade; Jakob Dvořáček, the Deputy Minister of Health, Josef Kratochvíl, the President of the Industrial Property Office of the Czech Republic; Martin Fusek, the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry of the CAS and Technological Agency of the Academy of Sciences of the Czech Republic. We also should be in connection with the chief legal consultant of the EFVIA, Mrs. Christine Pierce. Hello, good morning. And if we manage to link to the Parliament, they are holding a session, so Professor Julius Špičák will also join us, the Vice Chairman of the Committee of the Healthcare of the Chamber of Deputies of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. I would like to give floor to the President of the Industrial Property Office, Josef Kratochvíl. Floor is yours. Good morning, everybody. I'm really surprised that I was given the introductory speech privilege. Nevertheless, it is a true privilege since we are going to talk about IP protection today. And recently, it seems that after 25 years of void period, of null period, we realize in this country that the IP property means something. We have been realizing it in the First Republic. We were 8 globally in a number of patents. We also were realizing it after World War II when I joined the Intellectual Property Office in 1986. We had 10,000 applications for patents per year. And now when we have made the economic change and we were hoping time will improve, I don't mean 2011, the political movement that supported us during the last government, we also raised the awareness among political circles, and the innovation strategy in the Czech Republic up to 2030 represents one of the 9 pillars of the IP protection. And in November last year, the strategy of the IP protection strategy was approved, which shows that maybe we, as the Czech Republic, are serious about it. After the economic changes in 1989, we just neglected this area, and even though in 1990 we have translated German Patent Act and we have established the legal framework identical to not only Europe but also US and Japan, and then we did nothing, in fact, and the average number of applications for patent represented 10% of the amount of patents applied for before 1989, and we are still at this low application numbers. Maybe we also committed some errors when we have promoted the system. We invited everybody, please apply, and then our applications started to apply for the trademarks and patents, and we are at the number of about 2,000 per year. Nevertheless, when you apply anything for the patent protection, in fact, you disclose the results of the development, scientific development, which is the most precious, most valuable thing, and you just announce your results free of charge to the rest of the world, and you get the patent protection for limited territory and limited period of time. So we are just applying for 2,000 technical solutions with potential protection within the territory of the Czech Republic, and only 500 and even less with potential of protection enjoyed abroad. While in Sweden, it is completely vice versa. For instance, TPCT applications, they apply 4,000 of those annually in Sweden. So that's the first thing we have to rectify in the patent system. And one thing that was neglected completely, when we have started to give points for the application for patents, getting also money for it, and also being rewarded for publications, which is also a nonsense. We forgot that, in fact, applying for patent is trying to get territorial protection for limited period of time, but it is primarily about the second most important thing, which is, in fact, meaning the technical protection of the innovative solution globally, and those strong ones being able in a good technical solution have to share with the rest of the world the most precious thing, their technical know-how, describing it in the patent application. So we had to start, and hopefully we will manage to explain it as soon as possible, even though 30 years represents quite a long period of time. So we should learn from patents applied for by the others. So we should mine the patent database, which is available on internet, partially in the Czech language. Nevertheless, 90% of the database is written in English. And we should learn how your specific area is developing globally, because all those results, or majority of those results at least, are available. Maybe the entity don't manage to keep it in a secrecy sometimes and so on. But I don't want to waste your time, and I just wanted to say that the patent system should be used primarily in a passive manner, and we as developers and researchers should become leaders in the given area, learning from the activities of others, colleagues, competitors, both in the research and production area. And from this high level of knowledge, we should develop further. And once we just gain it, the difference, the added value, added know-how should be, in fact, protected in an intelligent way, provided we don't manage to keep it in secrecy, which is more complicated even than before. And we should also learn and share and study what the others that are better than us achieved, those who could have invested more in the given profession, and we will get to the result outcomes of their effort free of charge. In 99% of the countries globally, no patents are valid. In fact, in the Czech Republic, we have about 50,000 patents. In the USA, there is about 3 million of patents, which is quite a big difference. If we are lucky, then anything we produce within the territory of the Czech Republic and sell it within the Czech Republic territory, we cannot breach any patent act, which is true about 99% of countries worldwide. It is not determined by the territory area, because usually about 1/4 of the planet, US, Germany, France, South Korea, Japan, and China. Within all those countries, there is even less patents valid compared to us. For instance, Slovakia 20,000, Hungary 35,000, Poland about 40,000 patents. So that's about those knowledgeable leaders are assessing the ability to copy their technical solutions, they are applying full in their patent applications. We are considered that stupid and that unintelligent that it does not make sense to patent anything within our territory because we are not even able to copy and paste what they have developed, even though it's free of charge. And from the legal point of view, it is also free. So if we are talking about that business, that profession, I would like to share with you my last message. Despite that, despite having implemented patent system, even though we have implemented the license system, by the way, I'm in charge of deciding about it in the Czech Republic. Nobody had ever applied for it, and it would take only 10 minutes to decide on it. So it's about simply doing crypto's favor by making, let's say, certain vaccine or a drug cheaper, providing it to some countries. They are not wealthy enough to be able to buy it. Most of the politicians do not realize that there are not even production capacities to produce it in their country. So in fact, at the end of the day, it won't help them at all. But I think we, as or you, as the manufacturers of original drugs, you are not in favor of the support, and we are also not supporting this system. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And I just have a question, President. Just to be clear, if somebody asks you, what's the situation as to IP protection rights? You've been talking about the great differences in the number of patents. So what is the target status for the Czech Republic, in your opinion? Let's imagine we are running a 10-kilometer race. Where are we at? Well, we are in the dressing room, right? Before the start of the marathon, we are just about to get on track. There's one thing we haven't learned in most of the cases. I know there are exceptions to the rule, but it's been taking quite a lot of time. Before or prior to 1990, in companies and research institutes, we had specialists who knew either they were those who archived technical information from patent files. And these people existed in companies and they made patent applications. So there were some slight differences, but not major. But it all collapsed, and as a result, we lost the ability to support this area. And I think that what we should achieve is at least to try using the patent system passively. That is, using the information about the state-of-art technologies, for example, medicines against cancer. We should be able to use this information because somebody had to actually share it because they were forced to do so by the patent system. So if we can only start using the information, we do a lot. And I was also talking about this concept of IP protection. And this concept says that public authorities should create teams or work sites dedicated to this problematic to get back to the status 30 years ago. Also, there are manufacturing companies which have either managed to train their staff or hire external consultants. And this is a great leap forward because this shows it's not worth starting to invent using a clean table. It's worth looking first at what the peers have already achieved, like Siemens or whatever. So you can start by taking it over or copying and then working on it and elaborating on it without obviously breaching any patent right. So we need to learn to use technical information which is publicly available, and if you find something out, you should be able to use smart patent protection. So not acting in a stupid way, but rather having a patent strategy, file a PCT application, and so on. So I think the goal is to get on track. Obviously, in China, they've already applied for 3 million patents. We are not planning on anything of that kind. But if we want to make a plan, it should be about filing applications abroad and selling patent licenses to be as successful and rich as the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry, which is one of the few institutions which is able to do this. Thank you very much. And now we'd like to have a look at the situation in the EU. I mean the situation as to IP protection in respect of medicines. And we'll be happy to hear updates. And we got here Christine Pears, who is the Chief Legal Consultant to the EFPIA. So I'd like to give the floor to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you see the slides, please? Just.
Yes, we do.
Vidíme vaše slajdy. Yeah.
Yes, we can see them. Yes.
Thanks very much, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this prestigious panel and giving me the opportunity to talk about IP protection for pharmaceuticals in the EU and why this is so crucial for us in Europe. Actually, it's really IP is at the origin of what this industry does, and it allows us to venture into making the impossible possible. So please bear with me as I explain why this is the case, because for many people, IP seems to be a very abstract concept, but it certainly isn't, and certainly not for the medical, the pharmaceutical sector. So let me remind you, IP is really the key driver of medical innovation. Can we imagine a world without IP? It would be a world without medicines, because IP provides only a limited period of commercial exclusivity, and that allows the industry to take the risk and invest in long, complex, and costly process of research and development to bring new medicines to the patients. Why am I saying that it is so risky, and why is it taking that long? It actually takes about 12 to 15 years, and it costs more than 1 billion euros to develop a new drug. And that development time, by the way, has been increasing over the years. Why does it take that long? Because we need to make sure that the medicines that we're bringing to patients are safe and efficacious. And so it's only normal, it's a good thing that it takes that long, but these clinical trials are costly, and 12 to 15 years is what we face here. And many of the candidates will fail along the way. So what we are talking about is 10,000 candidates from the idea, so compounds that we are considering in the discovery phase. But only 1 to 3 of these 10,000 will make it to the regulatory approval. That is not a failure, because as Thomas Edison says, I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that will not work. This is how innovation in the medical sector works. So IP gives the companies that are investing in R&D the certainty that if they have a medicine that makes it to the market, it will be protected from unfair competition for a limited period of time. So, and I'm trying to, So IP is really the foundation of all medical innovation. And that means that it drives innovation and the major scientific advances. In Europe, despite the disruption that is caused by COVID-19, we have seen a pipeline with 8,000 new therapies, all highly innovative. So like the CAR-Ts that is transforming the way we deliver care and improve people's lives, in particular for cancer patients. HIV has become a manageable disease when it's used to be a death sentence. Also, the vaccine for COVID, we have found the first vaccine approved in 326 days. Normally, it takes 10 years to find a new vaccine. And also, because of IP, we can continue to invest in very high-risk areas like Alzheimer's. The failure rate there is 99.6%, almost not worth it anymore. But because of IP, we can continue to invest in researching for a solution to this. Next to driving an innovation, it also fosters investment and creates wealth and jobs, which is very important for EU's competitive advantage. And the pharmaceutical industry is investing every year 39 billion in R&D in Europe. That is more than any other research-based sector in Europe is doing. And it's 62 million of that is invested in the Czech Republic. Sorry, in the Czech Republic. We employ also more than 800,000 people in Europe. And of these 800,000, there's 18,000 in the Czech Republic. So just to frame what is the current EU incentives ecosystem, what does that look like? And I try to put everything on one slide. So bear with me, I'll just walk you through this very quickly to give you an overview, but then you have a bit of an insight of what it really means. And it's because the incentives are IP is very much linked to the regulatory system, the R&D pathway of a product. And that you can see at the top half of this slide. And that is the regulatory pathway that a product has to go through. It starts on the left with an idea over research and development in the clinical trials to the marketing authorization after 12 to 15 years. As I mentioned, 10,000 compounds in discovery, only 1 to 3 will finally be approved and make it to the patients. Underneath that, you see the incentives framework. And that is designed and fine-tuned over the years to respond to the societal needs. In orange, you have the patent. That grants the right to exclude others from commercially exploiting the invention for a limited term of 20 years. And as was mentioned before, what is often forgotten is that in return for that patent, the inventor has to disclose the details of the invention, and that spurs further innovation. It gives the scientific technology knowledge, and it helps to accelerate innovation by others. Then you have in dark blue the SPC, the Supplementary Protection Certificate, that restores some of the effective patent term that is lost in the R&D phase. I'm saying it, so it takes 12 to 15 years. There's not much left of your 20 years. So this is an additional 5 years that can be added so that at least the innovator can still enjoy some patent rights after he has gotten the approval. Then you have the regulatory data protection. That's in green. It's a different type of protection. It's not like the patent. This is about the minimum period of exclusivity that is protecting the investment in generating the data to demonstrate the quality and efficacy and safety of medicine. And this is really crucial because the longer it takes to get your product on the market, the more slim it becomes, that there is still a protection of patent of SPC. So then, in that case, the regulatory data protection is often the only protection that the innovative industry still has. And then you have underneath additional incentives, because sometimes the basic IP incentives are not enough in cases, specific cases, like when there is a very small market or only a very not many patients that can be recruited. So there you have, for instance, the orphan medicines exclusivity. That's for the orphan area. So there's an insufficient market incentive. There's challenges in finding the patients. So there you need to have a different type of incentive in order to incentivize the industry to keep on doing research in that area. And then you also have pediatric reward. It's not an incentive, it's a reward for conducting the pediatric studies. Then you get a 6-month extension of your SPC, or 2 years for the orphan medicines exclusivity. Just to say here that these incentives do not stack up. They work side by side in parallel. So it's not forever protecting an innovation, but it's very important to this industry. What do we expect then in the 5 years? Is this all going to remain the same? Do we expect that there is more to come? Well, in light of the pharmaceutical strategy, the Commission is putting forward over 50 legislative and non-legislative actions. And several of these proposals that are under consideration, they suggest destabilizing the IP rights or weakening IP rights. And all of this because they want to address issues of access and affordability. Unfortunately, this risks accelerating the erosion of Europe's research base, and it will not help access at all. And I mentioned here, it's very important. The Czech Republic has a crucial role to play here, because you have the presidency of the Council of the EU at the time that this pharmaceutical package will be tabled. So it's important to realize that we need a strong IP framework in order to have access and not to become a second-rank innovator lagging behind the US and China. We already see now that 48% of the global new treatments are coming from US, not from Europe. Only 22% comes from Europe. So that's already a complete reversal of the situation that we had 25 years ago. And this is what really reduces access. An erosion of IP incentives will make it less attractive, more uncertain to invest in Europe, and therefore patients will not have the opportunity to get access to innovative medicines. So, if I may, I would just like to say a few words about the WTO COVID-19 TRIPS waiver. This is a proposal that was put forward by India and South Africa to ensure that IP is not a barrier to the universal access to health products needed in the COVID crisis. And the EU, Europe, stood very strong against this TRIPS waiver because they understand, the Commission made that very clear, that IP is not a barrier. Vaccine production is not a bottleneck, and this has now been shown and proven. The industry has manufactured 13 billion doses and is expected to produce more than 20 billion in 2022. You see it in the graph here. The vaccine production outpaces the doses that can be administered. So the problem is not the vaccine production, the problem is the vaccination. We hear from countries that they are destroying their vaccines. They cannot distribute them in time anymore. So they ask the manufacturer, please suspend the delivery because we have a surplus of stock. This is not the problem. IP is actually part of the solution. It's not a barrier, so that should not be changed. Now, Europe, as I said, stands is very clear that it's not IP that is the barrier, and they don't want to have an IP waiver, but they did put forward a compromise proposal. which we think is unnecessary, and actually it could irreversibly damage innovation and therefore also people's health around the world. Because you can see it's not necessary. It's the wrong answer for a problem that doesn't exist anymore. And in the meantime, you see overwhelming evidence that there's more than enough vaccine production. And WHO has also agreed to that. Supply is not the issue. IP is actually part of the solution. We should not do anything about IP. It's because of IP that we have these vaccines in a record time, that we have all these collaborations for manufacturing, both vaccines and therapeutics, and that includes also manufacturing in Africa, collaboration there. The issue is not production, as I said. It's what WHO has also told us. It's about the distribution. It's about not having enough health workers, political commitments, the vaccine acceptance. These are the problems. And this whole TRIPS waiver is a distraction from acting on issues that will actually help getting more people vaccinated around the world. So to end, I just want to say that it could irreversibly damage our preparedness for the next pandemic. It weakens if we weaken IP. And the scope of this proposal goes, by the way, beyond vaccines to all technologies and processes that are needed. It can include therapeutics and diagnostics, as many already want it. It's clear that it's going into that way. And it risks setting a standard, going then beyond the COVID-19 context and into beyond the current pandemic scope. So it would be clearly diminishing IP, eroding IP. And then, by the way, there's also the costs that we can see on an economic level that are equally important. So we hope that the WTO members will carefully consider if damaging a collective ability to respond to the pandemic is actually the right way to go. Thank you. Looking forward to questions.
Děkuji velice pěkně.
Thank you very much for educational and very clear presentation. We will continue, and then I will just ask some additional details. I just wondered whether we will manage to connect to the Parliament of the Czech Republic with the Professor Julius Špičák from the Chamber of Deputies of the Parliament. We don't manage so far, so maybe we can summarize the situation in Europe. We have heard there is an effort strive to modify current pharmaceutical legislation. There are more than 50 legislative measures. We have already experienced the COVID vaccine, which resulted in certain proposals which are somehow in contradiction with the IP protection in certain extent. So it will be good to know the position of the Czech Republic. What is the position of the Czech Republic to patents, IP protection, and drugs generally? So I would like to ask the Deputy Minister of the Section of the Economic Policy and Entrepreneurship of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, Mrs. Silvana Jerotková. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my thanks for being invited to today's roundtable. I'm really pleased that we are discussing this topic not only here but in other platforms also, because it's truly important. Thank you very much for the introduction of President Kratochvíl, introducing us the situation in the Czech Republic. I was thinking about our activities, what we are actually doing wrong, not only from the positions of states, but everybody of us. We know we are probably in a special bubble here that perceives the risks in the same way. The risk Christine had described a minute ago. And I'm in favor of her position also. Christine Pierce's opinion is truly right. The failure is probably that we do not communicate it sufficiently. And that's why I'm really pleased being here and being able to express my opinion, describing position of the Czech Republic, primarily from the Ministry of Industry and Trade position, and also from the position of Deputy Minister of the section of the Economic Policy and Entrepreneurship. The contribution of pharmaceutical industry is quite clear, but not only the context, but the basis of the cornerstones of the innovative pharmaceutical industry. And without that, without protection, due protection in a relevant period of time, as we know before we develop drug, it takes some time. We cannot rely on having, as Mrs. Christine highlighted, that we would have access to drugs, not only to those drugs majority of population needs, but especially the orphan drugs, rare diseases that are quite unique, but also in the orphan drugs, the IP protection is really important, and it gives us a chance to provide good cure. If the market does not work and pharmaceutical companies cannot expect they would generate profit from design and development of those drugs, they generate profit from research and development and protection, especially due to IP protection for more general illnesses. Then by generating profit from them, then they are able to focus on the rare diseases not covered by the market principle. I think this is really important to highlight, and on behalf of the Czech Republic and on behalf of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, I can state that we definitely will try to achieve the situation of a good solution, probably from the view of private segment. Any company, not only pharmaceutical company, need to be sure there is a security established on the market to start business. Actually, it is not relevant only to IP, it is relevant to entrepreneurship principles and market operation. And of course, this little effort, this effort will in fact break this security, and that's why companies probably won't dare to do this business at all, because they won't be able to compensate costs they have generated while designing the drugs. So thank you very much. So do you think that the presidency of the Czech Republic also represents a chance to focus more intensively on this topic?
Definitely yes. Obviously, the Czech Republic cannot primarily use its position or express its opinion or refute the position of the other member states. But our advantage as presiding country is to listen and sort of deal with the opinions of the other member states and try to form groups and give there a chance to talk and reach a consensus the way we wish it to be. Okay, now we'll try to look at the whole topic from the perspective of the Ministry of Health. I'd like to give the floor to Jakob, Deputy Minister of Health. Thank you very much for the invitation. I've known the people here for years. They are people who are deeply involved in IP protection and pharmaceutical industry. But let me start in a more general way. That is, the perspective of the European Commission, the situation regarding the legislation and legislative amendments on pharmaceutical industry. And let me say that what I've been seeing for the recently is not ideal. Partially, it is due to the communication, but both the pharmaceutical strategy and some other legislative materials which come in deal with the reasons and the change that has occurred. As we've seen from Christine, Europe is no longer the innovation leader in medicinal development. The leader are the United States. Why? If Europe invests great money in the support to research and development. Apparently, we are not able to keep the production within the EU. And the question is the system well set? I'm not sure about this because I'm not an expert. But what I can see at the Health Directorate at the European level, as well as in the other key institutions, is that they need to think about the roadmap for the next 10 to 15 years. I can see a great commitment on their part because it is really necessary to look at the investments and at the resulting benefit for the patient. We need to see that the investments are materialized in what we get. And we need to find out whether Europe can compare to the rest of the world. And I think the industry should actually reflect on that too and think about the way the whole mechanism functions. And then the other thing is the European approach to IP protection. It is about the affordability and availability. And here we can see a huge disproportion as to when the medicines are available and affordable in the strong countries as opposed to the weaker ones. We can see that there is a big group of countries which is forming and which sees that as a huge inconvenience and detriment. So the big question is the availability and affordability of medicines to all EU member states. So on one hand, Europe is open to new parameters, to new ways of research and development. I also see a will for partnership. On the other hand, what I perceive is the will to change the system in a way of having a greater benefit and affordability for Europe as such. I state that as a fact. It's not that I prefer any solution or approaches. What I miss a lot, and of course I am a pharmaceutical industry representative, and I've chaired the initiative, the association for 10 years. But when I look, for example, at the French presidency, the voice of the one behind R&D doesn't resonate too much. I believe that during the Czech presidency, this will be more legible, it'll resonate more, and Sweden will be the same. But I wanted to emphasize this. It's not just about the pharmaceutical strategy. There is also a regulation which will significantly redesign the R&D face of Europe. That's the European health data space. And of course, also the secondary use of health data. This is something that the Czech Republic will have to deal with. It is a material that we'll discuss about. It is a complex document, so we probably won't be able to deal with everything. But in any case, this regulation will regulate the way of European competitiveness during the next 10 years. In other words, if we do this right, we'll be competitive as Europe, competitive against the US, China, and so on. If we don't do this right, I think the fall is going to continue. So these are the key materials which we have ahead of us. I don't think that the pharmaceutical strategy will be known during the Czech presidency. Actually, I think this will have to be dealt with by the Swedish presidency. But I think we'll have to work on it. The other material should be available in May. So I think that the Czech Republic can and benefits from the fact that it has a rather strong position in the area of IP protection, and we also have good academic skills and knowledge. We continue to lead discussions with the Ministry of Industry and Trade so that it is well understood what the role of the pharmaceutical industry in the Czech Republic is. We also discuss the autonomy of the Czech Republic and the resilience of the pharmaceutical industry. And I believe that the ministry will want to jointly communicate this. And I think that we should know where we are standing and what our future position will be. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you. Can you please elaborate a little bit on the resilience of the pharmaceutical industry and what the ministry can do in that? Generally, Europe is trying to be more autonomous, both in the area of R&D and production. All that is connected, and it also has to do with IP protection, because IP protection helps us to keep the production here in Europe. In the context of what is competitive and what Europe produces, this means rather products with a higher added value. And the resilience consists in the way we set the production rules as well as the purchase and distribution and import rules. And when I say import, I mean active substances. FDA made a research in 2019 and 2020, and they were trying to map out the reasons for a lack of availability of certain medicines in the US. And it turned out that the reason was, in most of the cases, that due to the regulation, the industry was not able to react fast enough. So the FDA recommended simplifying the rules to facilitate the import of medicines. And they also recommended assessing the producers and giving bonuses to those manufacturers that would be able to fill the potential gaps in case of shortages. And I think this is what Europe is trying to think about. It's about the way you set the environment to bonify those who are able to supply sustainable to provide sustainable supplies. And here I mean supplies not only within Europe, but also to the Czech Republic. Thank you. So the Czech Republic has to make an inventory to see what can be improved.
I would like to invite the director of the Association of Innovative Pharmaceutical Industry, Mr. Kolář, and I would like to ask them how the IFP thinks about this position. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm really pleased that this discussion is being organized. I'm really pleased to hear information I have heard from the previous speakers. Maybe I would build on the Christine's paper because for AIFP, we have a similar position because the intellectual property protection is one of the most basic prerequisites, and the results outcomes have been already mentioned several times, talking about a risk alone. If there is a risk that out of 10,000 molecules at the entry of the process, the only one or no molecule will end up at the patient, and the cost are among 1 or 2 billion of euros, and about half of the time of the protection is consumed by the clinical trials and penetration on individual markets, then the risk is really very high. And I think that speaking about individual challenges we are facing, the Deputy Minister had already highlighted it also, because within the European legislation, the intellectual protection rights will be discussed many times, and I have been witnessing many times that the Czech Republic is in favor of the protection of the innovative IP, and I'm really pleased because Czech Republic is maybe a pioneer, because there are not that many European countries that would share the position. But hopefully we will all be in favor of the IP protection eventually. And I think it's necessary to explain why it is important, because when we hear IP protection, then nobody or only few people just think about all the efforts and consequences. And I think the next speaker will tell us more about it in the next paper, because just the guarantee of the investment made by the innovative pharmaceutical company, there is also an economic aspect related to R&D also in the Czech Republic, and I'm really looking forward to the next paper. Thank you very much. And I would, in fact, like to ask Mrs. Christine Pires. We have heard that Czech Republic is in favor of innovations, and we also heard it from all other speakers. And Czech Republic is in favor of IP protection. Do you think, or what the Czech Republic can do in the pan-European countries in another world? How strong is the voice of the country like Czech Republic? Unfortunately, the pharmaceutical strategy will not be discussed within the Czech presidency, nevertheless. What do you think Czech Republic can do in favor to protect it more? Christine? Question for Christine.
I would hope that because the Czech Republic does have the presidency of the EU Council, the Council of the EU at the end of the year, we hope that the Czech Republic and the Czech Republic can do a lot to emphasize the importance of IP. So it's great to hear that you support, but we need to see this also in a critical analysis of the proposals that the EU will be putting forward in changing the basic pharmaceutical legislation and the legislation on orphan medicines and pediatrics. These are the main legislations where we see that there is now a proposal. It's not been tabled yet, but from what we see, it would include a reduction of IP, and that would be detrimental, not just for innovation, but also to access to innovation, as I mentioned before. I think it's also important the important mention was about the reality of access, which is something that this industry wants to address as well. It's not, we want to work with the different governments to make sure, including with the Czech Republic, to make sure that access is addressed. And you will have seen we published some studies to show what the real reasons are, because the reasons behind access, lack of access, or availability and delays in availability, they are there, but they are not IP. And so we need to address this, and it's very, very important. We want to get our medicines out there also in the Czech Republic to all the patients across the whole of Europe. But we need to, first and foremost, protect innovation so that we have the medicines that can then be made accessible and available to the patients.
Děkuji velice pěkně, děkuji.
Thank you very much. Would you like to respond? Tracking availability of the drugs in the Czech Republic, maybe find out the reasons and put it in correlation with the IP protection, because we quite often state that lack of IP protection results in inaccessible drugs. Do you think it is possible for the Czech Republic to do something about it? Yes, I think this is exactly what Czech FDA is also doing, and we also have had the detailed information what drugs is available or not, and also within the certificate you have to state the reason for inaccessibility, and also related to FDA document in 2020, the European Commission had developed a similar document, and this document is even more complex and longer compared to FDA analysis. And of course, the number of reasons are quite complex. Nevertheless, only few of the moments are caused by inaccessibility, limiting it to only one manufacturer or small group of manufacturers. So I don't think that the reason of inaccessibility is caused by the lack of patent protection. I don't know whether it's true for the Czech Republic, but at least in Europe, and this is also true for US, it depends on the crisis management structure of the manufacturing process, and what are the guarantees that the product will not be short of stock, because the shortage is happening, and this is not caused by the patent protection. How robust the system is, how the companies are ready for the specific trouble, is something that should be reflected also in the Health DG or European Commission and so on, to evaluate, let's say, certain waiver or releasing the patent protection, securing high-quality deliveries. Well, it was not proven that it's a good approach. Nevertheless, once the spiral is accelerated and the prices are dropping, it results in more fragile system. The industry have to communicate more how they are ready for potential shortages, how they guarantee the delivery of raw materials, substances, provided they are not produced within Europe. And this should be discussed also within the European Commission. And this is one of the reasons why there is a discussion about modifying the orphan drug medicinal products protection or pediatric drugs and so on. So this is about the measures for potential shortages closely related to it. Thank you very much. And now I would like to, in fact, focus on the next presentation, whether the Czech Republic may focus and contribute to innovations. We know it can, because we have the in fact, Institute of Chemistry and Biochemistry, and it is well known, well established. They are conducting admirable research, bringing true results on the market. Now I would like to invite Mr. Fusek, contribution of patents to Czech medical centers and the research contribution. Thank you very much. Would you mind? Well, the presentation will be probably controlled by somebody else than me. You don't mind if I speak English? Because I have expected that we would have foreign guests, and that's why. No, you are welcome. Please speak English.
For having me here. And what I would like to talk about probably is not exactly what I've been asked for. Well, maybe I will try to describe the landscape a little bit, and especially to have a focus on challenges which I can see in this respect. So yeah, first of all, maybe next slide, please. I would like to give you a very short introduction to our institute, which is Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry, which is part of Academy of Sciences of Czech Republic. And this institute, as being member of the family of academic institution, is devoted or designed or focused on basic research, but because the research is in such areas which are in a very close contact to, let's say, drug development and so on, we sometimes have some luck, and we can also use the results to try to commercialize them and to bring them to the market through of course, commercial partners. So the research can be divided into 3 buckets and so on. I don't want to spend time on it. Important maybe is that we try to really push, or the Institute is trying to promote, the interdisciplinary approach, which means to combine the different disciplines so to create a new, let's say, value. Next slide, please. So just to give you a short overview of what are the products at the end. So in this slide, we have divided these products into different categories according to their, let's say, type or indication. And of course, the famous is the antivirotics coming from the laboratory of Professor Holly, which actually represent now the major or are part of, or major part of treatment of HIV and HBV, and which have been commercialized through great collaboration with company Gilead in United States. The second part, which you can see there, it's a little bit historical. We are talking about something which was very much developed in 70s and 80s. But for example, carbetoxin is now being used by all obstetricians all around the world, basically, for certain treatments of pregnant ladies. And these compounds, or these drugs later on, have been developed with local company Léčiva, and then also with company Ferring, Danish company Ferring. The very first result of the research was this ointment dermazulen, which is still produced, And then the last two examples are actually very interesting from the point of view of patenting. These compounds have been discovered in early 80s of the last century. And at that time, either no patent was submitted or patent application was submitted, or the patent application was abandoned very soon. And it has been broadly published in nice papers and so on. So you would say killed compound. But as the new era of so-called epigenetic control came into the play in, let's say, late 90s, early 2000, one Israeli company actually started to work on it and were able to patent it again for a different indication, which then had been sort of broadened. And now these compounds are very important drugs in the field of hemato-oncology. So this is an interesting story about something which you would consider as a dead compound because it was not protected, but still now there are companies which can produce it and which can actually help people with certain diseases. So in the next slide, I have just summarized what we have done over last, because it has been said here, it takes 15 years to bring the compound to the market. So now we are looking at something which is now in a preparation, let's say. And this is just the list of agreements we have signed with different partners. As you can see, Gilead again it plays a major role in this collaboration. But I would just name Novo Nordisk as because we have a director of the Czech office here. So and so on and so on. So we try to move on, and we hope that we will continue in the success of the researchers which have been active over the last 50 years, let's say, at the Institute. The next slide will just summarize that translated into patent applications, which definitely, I mean, I don't need to mention that this is a crucial part of the whole process. We have about 10 patent applications per year, so relatively small number. We are a relatively small institute compared to, I don't know, Charles University or Masaryk University. We are 900 people, so it's really small institute which produces this, this flow of patents. Next slide. So now I'm getting into the play. So I try to divide it into basically 3 slides. One will be look of the academia. I say IOCB Prague, but I mean it more in academia as such. Then something about how we see it from the position of Tech Transfer Office, which is IOCB Tech, and what are how do we see the industry, what the industry wants and how they proceed, and of course in combination with the position of patent offices, I would say, not only one patent office. So if we move to next slide. How is it, and now, I'm sorry, I always try to focus on challenges rather than on the results and so on. So, no, what are the problems there in academia? And now I'm talking about all universities or Institute of Academy of Sciences. The major problem is pre-publishing, definitely. So the scientists are, they are paid, if I say it simply, for production of papers, abstracts, talks, and so on, which nothing wrong with it, but this is a little bit in contradiction with the patenting and with the protection of IP rights, right? So, but if I say at our institute, I think we have, together with Dr. Součková, Lala, we have educated people that they should first come to us before they submit the abstract, if they are in doubt. Of course, sometimes it happens that they come on Tuesday saying that, Friday I'm leaving for, I don't know, San Diego, and shouldn't we do a patent on that? So that happens, but it is less and less frequent, I must say. What is major, more pronounced problem is patent. We patent far too early, really. If you see when company applies for a patent at the phase when they go to IND, let's say, that's the time. We patent 5-6 years before that. And the reason for that is multiple. I would say one of them is a grant scheme here. If you ask for grants for your research, you ask GACHR, which is the Grant Agency of Czech Republic, or TACHR, which is the Technology Agency of Czech Republic. And if you want to pass this grant with excellence, you have to publish, you have to submit, or actually you have to get a patent approved. So it's sort of, one of the catch-22 which we are facing, that either we will get grant money to develop something, but then we will patent too early, which means that we probably will kill the project. So that's one, publications, again, abstracts, and then students. And this is, I don't know how to solve that one, but just to name it, that, of course, especially we have like 200 students at the Institute, most of them PhD students. Most of the universities where they are actually enrolled, we are just serving as the place where they can do the experimental work. They, of course, they have inquiries that for students to publish 1, 2, 3 papers. And so very often, if the student is working on a project which direct into some application, then of course we have to patent because we don't want him to destroy his career and postpone his defense. So these are, I think, these are things which are generally problematic in Czech Republic. So then the next thing is, I would talk probably about more general, not particular in our situation. The financial resources we have heard from Dr. Kratochvíl that we have not enough PCT applications, right? But it costs money, and who is going to pay for that? Yeah. So and it's funny. I have a table there how much it costs, but it is a problem for many universities to pay for PCT. So they just apply for a Czech patent, probably hoping that by that they will fulfill the grant or something like that, and there is no continuation. So that's a problem. So early patenting, and again there is a discrepancy that if we go to our customers, which means pharmaceutical companies, and if we present our project, they say, well, that's really interesting, but come when you are in the IND phase, right? But because we have to patent very early and it takes time, then probably we lose it just because of the patenting. So it's for another discussion how to solve these problems. But okay, let's move on, please. I'm taking too much time. So from us, from our point of view as a IOCB Tech, as the Tech Transfer Office, then the challenges, FTO, to do a really good freedom to operate search, it's not trivial, and I think that it's one of the sort of opportunities where we would enjoy some help from either patent office or someone to help us, because I think that it is now so broad, especially if you go into biologics, for example, that probably some machine learning and artificial intelligence could help in that. Of course, question of patentability, again, it's getting to be so complex. And of course, in the case of biologics or gene therapies in Czech Czech area, this is really very untouched and difficult to really get some insight into what has been already patented, because the DNA sequences are a little bit complex, and that's something where really we have to use some external offices, and unfortunately we have to go outside of the country, and then it becomes really expensive. One search of this costed us last year like 40,000 euros. We can afford it. We are very fortunate for that and very, very happy for that. But many of our colleagues in universities have no chance to afford such services. Next slide, please. Is mentioning industry. What I would say is that the industry is changing. It was very conservative many years. Now it's changing so rapidly that we have a problem to keep pace, to really follow it, because the situation is and the development, especially in the, let's say, oncology area, with all the immuno-oncological treatments and so on. It's so quickly developing, which is super, but for us it's a little bit difficult to really keep track. And also the approach of industry is changing from very conservative, they called it NIH, so non-invented here. So nobody was looking at what's going on in academia. Now they are watching what's going on in academia, and we have now signed a contract with AstraZeneca, where they actually are helping us develop one project where I feel that it's really changing, because before that the companies were like behind the wall. So and then if I may, a few words about patent offices. And now, please, I'm not speaking about the Westruhách, UPV. I have to say that, there is a double standard. There is a double standard in the process of accepting certain claims and so on, if the patent application is submitted by Big Pharma and if it comes from academia. And now I'm speaking really about, let's say, US patent office and also European patent office. It's a major difference what the company can get patented and what the institute can get patented. So I don't know where it comes from, but there is a difference. Sometimes we have a fun, because at one situation with USPTO, we had a patent accepted, granted in Europe and everywhere. US Patent Office was making problem with several claims. So we asked our the US patent attorney to help us. And then he called back that the situation was that the officer at the USPTO, well, the problem was she was not chemist, so it was difficult to explain her that the claim is okay. But even worse, she did not understand English. So that's something interesting. And then last point on this slide, quality of searches. And now it's not because Engineer Kratochvíl is sitting next to me. I must say the quality of searches of UPV is much better than, for example, European Patent Office. We can say that. I hope that I will get something back on that. Now, so last two slides, please. I don't want to take too much of it. So basically, what could be done? So sometimes we see, and it was mentioned before, that certain institutions would just put down the patent application just to let's say fulfill the grant application or grant. Okay, so we hope that the real patents, which are which are having some meaning will grow in numbers. Then, the early patenting and what the company wants, it's a major problem. And the next slide is just everybody knows this picture, and I would like to bring to your attention that 5,000 euros for PCT plus minus, okay, it could be less, could be more, is a major problem for many universities. But I've just, full stop, major problem. And that's basically blocking the continuation of this process. And of course, the later national phases, it's really expensive, especially if you think to go to Japan or Asia in general. It's getting to be actually very expensive. We know that because we got some patents returned from Gilead, but we wanted to keep them, so we had to follow that path. And that was quite costly and is still costly. But we believe in the project, and we are sure that Gilead, when we present the data this spring, they will be excited. And basically, solution to a little bit of the problem, I'm just using the opportunity to have here Mrs. Yirotkova, that, maybe couldn't we create a fund at the ministry which would be just devoted to help the PCT applications to fly? Just, of course, the question is who is going to decide which should be okay or not, I don't know. But the numbers shouldn't be a big. I think in the pharma part of patenting, it will be five projects a year, not more overall. So it's small money, but it could help a lot for development in other places than IOCB. Thank you for your attention.
Děkuji velice pěkně, pane profesore.
Thank you very much, Professor. You were talking about those two big problems which lead to early patenting, which misses the needs of the industry. If you have the power, how would you deal with that? Would you change the grant policy, or should we focus on patents out of the scope of grants? Well, I'll speak in Czech now. If we got our inspiration from the US, these requirements are not there. You don't need to have two patents for this amount of money. And often I try to repeat this. This is often our local situation. We constantly live with the presumption of guilt, presuming that everybody is going to cheat. And this is why we try to come up different rules to limit cheating. And this also concerns scientists, and this is the type of consequences we get. So the way you think is that the next time I'm not going to get a grant, so I'd rather publish, because me as a scientist, I need grants. So this presumption of guilt is then subsequently reflected in many other areas. Thank you. And as for the cost of patent proceedings, if I got it right, you said there should be a fund which should be created. Is there another country where they've done that already? Oh, I don't dare to say this. Maybe chairman could comment on that. Could you answer, please? I'd rather start with the presumption of guilt, if you don't mind. Mr. Schwarzenberg, God bless him, said that what we do about grants is really stupid, and it leads to the consequences mentioned by the professor. And I can confirm that when I was at the US Patent Office in 2001, they were examining things such as the PCT minimum. And when I got into the basement, I saw all the different American applications and a few PCT. There were no other countries because they simply believed that the US was the country in the world. The research was conducted by their interns. Today, they are done by external workers. So I thank you. I can give you the 300 that I got in my pocket, and I'll give it to you when we end here. But I do remember the way you conduct research, because I started to work at my office in 1986. And I really want to keep good quality, but what they got in the US is really, really bad. I just want to touch on the 10 patents mentioned by the professor. Even if they only made 5 or 6, it doesn't really matter, because they can get a lot of money for the results. They get between 2 to 5 billion a year, and if you just think of the Charles University, which is actually bigger than the European Commission, their income is much, much lower, because all the institutions combined make about 400 million, whereas the Institute of Chemistry and Biochemistry gets billions. As for the Westruha case, I understand that the problem is not there, because we only have the boiler room. So now let me get back to the money. We've heard that the PCT phase costs 5,000 euros within the first 3 or 4 months. But I don't think it's so much, considering the other billions. The PCT application had to be paid for also in the past, and the good news is that a similar thing is being prepared on the national level, and it should cover the SMEs and public research institutions. It should be launched at the beginning of this year or in April, but I'm not sure whether they'll be able to stick to the deadline given the circumstances in Europe. But the main thing is that the European Commission has released money for patent applications, but only for national patent applications, meaning Spanish, French, Romanian, Czech, Slovak, and so on. And don't ask me why. So for some reason, they give you 50%, which is 100 euro, of the application fee. So I don't think it's worth it. But if anybody thinks it is worth it, it makes that person to share his or her know-how with the rest of the world. And as everybody knows that we are not able to make 500 PCT applications, and it would cost too much, we simply need to deal with a commission which does strange things. On one hand, they support national patent applications and refuses European patent applications. I mean, I would appreciate any sum. If you compare the patent applications regarding the National Space Agency in the US and in Europe, the ratio is 4,000 to 5. So it is completely ridiculous. And here I've seen for the first time that there are about 50 proposals in the pipeline, but the patent offices don't know about that, so that stinks. And maybe it's not due to a lack of knowledge. There may be also some other issues. So the pharmaceutical industry should maybe take a look at who's in the commission, because this cannot be just silliness. Thank you very much. Mr. Dvořáček, Deputy Health Minister, has left us, but fortunately we've managed to reach the House of Deputies and Julius Špičák, who is the Vice Chairman of the Committee on Health Care of the Chamber of Deputies of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. Can you hear us? Yes.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I think this is a very important issue which has to be fully, let's say, politically supported, because it's very important, let's say, for the motivation of the pharmaceutical company for the further, let's say, development, further progress. So I find this kind of meeting very important step forward. And I will do from my political position everything what is possible, let's say, to support this initiative. Thank you. As you can see, I am very busy because I am sitting here in the parliament and we have a regular program and voting and everything. So I cannot be with you a longer time, but it's understandable to me and I fully support this initiative. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Děkuji, pane profesore.
Thank you, Professor. If you can stay with us just for a little bit, I thank you for signing this declaration or topic, and anytime you want to share anything, we'll be more than happy. Thank you. Okay. The professor is no longer speaking. Okay, thank you. I'll get back to this. And now I'd like to turn to the floor and ask the representatives of pharmaceutical companies. We got here a representative of Novo Nordisk and Gilead, and I'd like to ask them the same questions. What does the cooperation with the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry brings to you as pharmaceutical companies? And from your perspective, why is this cooperation exceptional? I'd like to give the floor to Daniela White first from Novo Nordisk. Thank you. On behalf of Novo Nordisk, I'd like to say that we are an innovative and global company, and as Professor Fusak has suggested, big pharmaceutical companies do not conduct research by themselves, but they also work on the development of new and safe products and medicines, and we have started to cooperate with top leading institutes and institutions such as the MIT in Boston or the Oxford University, and obviously, of course, the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry and Mr. Fusak's team. We also support IP rights protection and patent protection, and we perceive this as a very important topic. And the cooperation with Mr. Fusak's team is very important and positive, because Professor Fusak's team is great not only in terms of research of new compounds and medicines, but also in terms of knowledge and expertise in patent protection. So this is very important to us, and we really appreciate the cooperation. And the team is really enthusiastic on top of that. So we have actually extended our cooperation, and we believe that whatever comes from the Institute will lead to perfect, great products which will get to the market and will get medicines to treat chronic diseases, not only in the Czech Republic, but also worldwide. Thank you. And now I'd like to give the floor to Pavel Březina, who is the director of the Czech branch of Gilead. Thank you very much for the invitation and for the question. And I'd like to say that our cooperation with the Institute has been quite essential and fundamental. We've been working together for more than 30 years, and I dare say that if it was not commercially successful and good, we probably wouldn't exist. So it has many benefits for us. You've already heard that innovative industry needs to work hand in hand with other institutions, and the cooperation means to us that we can see what researchers can do. We trust them. The cooperation was established more than 30 years ago, as I said, and we do trust them, and this gives us the opportunity to take operative decisions on using certain discoveries. I am thankful to hear that we've become more courageous and we are able to work faster to be able to push forward various types of new medicines so that they can help patients. Thank you very much. That's great praise for the Institute. And if I can comment on that, that's not my merit. There are many people, top scientists at the Institute who deserve this praise. I'm just an officer, a clerk. Thank you for this modesty. And I'd like to ask Mrs. Jirotkova, Deputy Minister, if you think about what you heard from Professor and all the others who support research in the Czech Republic, how can your ministry help to the conducting of research in the Czech Republic? Do you have any long-term plans as to cooperation with pharmaceutical industry? Do you think it should be worth supporting other companies? Can you maybe give your comments on this? I'll be more than happy to elaborate. Deputy Minister Špičák has already had to leave, but just from the perspective of the state should not complicate the life of business people. And we've already heard that the processes which are connected with patent protection are lengthy and costly, and the state should not make this even more complicated by setting new conditions, typically grants and conditions for the award of grants, which eventually leads to the destruction of the project or idea. I think that on one hand, we try to reasonably motivate the market and the environment to cooperate, because cooperation is the basis. But on the other hand, we try to do this directively. We probably cannot plan resilience, but we can facilitate the cooperation, interconnect the different stakeholders, help them to acquire resilience, and thus to improve the resilience of EU member states also in the area of pharmaceutical industry. We see that first there was the COVID-19 crisis, now we got another crisis, but we need to deal with the basic problems. And this leads me to saying that there are problems and we need to talk about them, because many times we don't have enough courage to deal with them. It's much more complicated to change the legislation, to adjust it, to make it simpler, and to make it more user-friendly, to achieve faster results. And of course, the producers need needs to be profitable, because if they are not profitable, they won't invest in research. So obviously, to have research, you need to fund it. And it would be nonsense to say that only the state needs to fund research. Of course, the state has some funds, but these are limited, and currently they are even more limited than ever. And also, the state only doesn't have the right ability to assess where the funds should go. It's not just about the presumption of guilt. You simply cannot give money to pay a blank check. So you need to cooperate with private investors, because they know very well where the results will or will not be. At the Ministry of Trade and Industry, we don't have the expertise. We can't tell whether a given research has the potential. So the ideal is to deregulate, not to interfere too much, not to use central management, because that doesn't bring the right results. Deputy Minister Dvořáček has already mentioned that we have a problem with crisis management, but we shouldn't only manage. We need to use the information in a way which allows providing information to the stakeholders. We don't want to sort of suffocate them with regulation. They need to be able to be resistant, because that's not the way the market works, and the life of stakeholders becomes much more complicated. Thank you.
Profesor zmiňoval.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Fusek had mentioned one option. So I would like to ask you, not minding, could we somehow help during the patenting applications? Maybe any fund may be generated. Well, the President Kratochvíl is more informed than me, but I guess you have been working about cohesions, OP, PIC, and the future OPs. So the tools exist. Of course, it is bound by rules and limits. Nevertheless, discussing about a simple fund, yeah, we can talk about it. Of course, I cannot promise or guarantee that something like that would be generated, but I think that, from long-term point of view, we should set priorities for the Czech Republic and not to fund everything. We should simply focus on those projects that would deliver results, focusing on selected few projects and keep the rest for private segment. We can discuss about it. Thank you very much. Yes, I would like to, in fact, comment it. Well, I have tried to change system of R&D funding, and we already discussed that we will simply fund those who will deliver and commercialize patents, and for 1 crown they would get 3 crowns. So then we just discussed that 99% of the funds would be given to the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry. That's a joke, but I think we should do something like that. In fact, out of 50 millions, only 17 millions were consumed during the last period. And for the second time, we just found it out. And then they have distributed those 50 millions. So hopefully we will get more applicants. So during 20 minutes, we will have enough applicants, hopefully. So for the conclusion, maybe I would like to give a message to our foreign guests. maybe if we say we, pharmaceutical companies producing most advanced drugs, we should not erode the patenting system, because then we won't have enough money for funds. Then everybody would think we have too much money. And I think the group that is powerful enough, knowing the system of patenting, we should use the following philosophy instead, that patenting system, even though monopolies generate profit, but in all professions in technology, only those who are the best, top of the creams, should get the money, developing the most advanced solutions that are patented, and then it can be provided to the rest of the world. So if the system of patenting would be, IP protection would be eroded, then this driving force would come to extinct. And it does not apply only to pharmaceutical companies. In fact, we discussed about vaccines, but this is not applicable only to vaccines. Thank you very much for more general view. So time is running, and I would like to ask for your questions. Hello, Dubanska Barbara. I'm a lawyer, and I'm mostly working in pharmaceutical companies, and I would like to share with you the view of external observer, and I'm in support of Professor Fusek, speaking about the support, since I'm working with the U.S. research academic environment. So in the U.S., you can get so-called IRC grant, €1.5 million, prestigious funds scheduled for 5 years. The success rate is low. This year, 5 applicants got the grant, which is a big success already. And in comparison, what NIH is offering, this is low amount. And in addition to that, you can get support. For instance, U.S. Army provides higher supports without any limits or preconditions that you should patent it and so on, because sometimes it is in contradiction of the research or publishing also. So within Europe, in fact, European Commission had decreased the support of ERC grants, lowering the budget this year. So unfortunately, it is not achieved. Then transfer of technologies. Yeah, of course, situation in individual member states is different. EU, we have a great example how to transfer technology, but this is only technologies. Then we have COIP of the Charles University. Yeah, we have heard that now when we get, let's say, new payments for different payments and so on, it would exceed 400 million, let's say. And this is developing, and this is not the same like in the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry. If you are outside of Prague, if you want to get the transactions transfer, there is lack of knowledge what to do and how to negotiate with investors. A lot of people have unreal ideas, also how to negotiate with the investors and how to draft PCTs. And then, of course, in the US, they do not evaluate only impacted journals, but also number of patents. And in fact, the transfer top companies are cooperating. Not only MIT, but most universities are cooperating with respect to CRISPs and so on. With respect to this big dispute, they are careful about it. Then speaking about pharmaceutical companies, it's about support of clinical trials assessment. So once such transaction is in fact developed, how to support clinical trials. Czech Republic is really great. We have Czech print, but if you are within SME, then smaller companies, small, medium-sized companies, then you probably won't have enough money to support it. But we have young scientists, we have infrastructure for clinical trials, but no financial support. The technical agency of the Academy of Sciences, they support automotive industry a lot, but for this sophisticated research, they really do not support sufficiently, I think. And I would really appreciate if they do. And then robust patent protection, IP protection is really necessary because European legislation is not that friendly. That's why there is a drain to US because, in fact, the pool which would remain in Europe is transferred over to the US. So, a lot of ideas. How would I appreciate higher support of R&D? Not only PCT, let's say 5,000. Well, it's really not much. I have seen higher amount if you see the more expensive US offices, but we can just strengthen it. Thank you very much. May I ask you for comments? Thank you very much. I have to respond. Speaking about transfer, it's not that bad, I have to say. I have been working in this area for the last 14 years, and I see how it is advancing from zero to some level. So it's a great success. Charles University, Masaryk University, Palacký University, yes, they are really more cooperative, and also South Bohemian University. So I think they are moving right direction. It's not ideal yet, but I believe that we are in good track. And then speaking about U.S. Universities, I have seen few years ago statistics how much money U.S. universities gain from licensing and other activities. Cannot stop. 3%. So New York University, Stanford, MIT, and others, they generate high income. Nevertheless, common U.S. universities do not generate that much. Just to give you a perspective. And last comment, I'm really sensitive about it. So I built my ego on it. I am not a vice president of the research council, but I am a president at the technology agency of the Academy of Sciences. So speaking about the technology agency of the Academy of Science, current president, well, and everybody tries to move things forward, but of course the others say, who is generating money for the economy? Yes, of course, machinery, automotive. So we have to find a balance between those who just generate enough profit and those who should generate enough money in the future. And it's not that easy to set the appropriate balance because you don't want to cut off the main producer and donate everything to the future perspective fields that we may develop now. But what will happen in the meantime between it will generate money. So it's more complex. But I agree with what the vice minister said and the president suggested that instead of distributing money to a lot of applicants, it's better to focus on few of us. I think it's necessary to do it. It is necessary to be sufficiently courageous. Unfortunately, that's life. Looking to, in fact, distribution of students. 60% of students study in bioscience. It happened, and it is like that still. So we have lot of educated people in biosciences, and we don't have relevant job for them. And one of the methods would be spin-offs and supporting spin-offs, where you can then make use of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, and sorry for the mistake I made. Okay, maybe just by way of conclusion, I'd like to give the floor to Christine Paris to give her comments on the other part where we talked about the support to research and development and about the way this increases the competitiveness of European countries and whether patent protection can ensure the competitiveness of the EU in medical research.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. And I can only reiterate what I said during the presentation. IP is really it's the lifeblood of our industry. We need to have IP in order to be able to do the research and development. So we are really counting on Europe not to reduce and erode the IP rights, the incentives for R&D that we now have, or we see in the proposals that are being contemplated in the regulatory framework. So this is something we absolutely need to preserve in order to be able to have an R&D framework ecosystem here in Europe that will allow Europe to be competing with countries like the EU, like the US, but also China, which is reinforcing its IP system and where we see more and more R&D disappearing too. Thank you.
Děkuji velice pěkně.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the floor? Any comments? No? No questions on my tablet either. Our time is up, so I'd like to thank all the different speakers we've heard today. Engineer Silvana Jirotkava, Deputy Minister of the Section of the Economic Policy and Entrepreneurship of the Ministry of Industry and Trade. Thank you very much. Christine Pears, of course, the Chief Legal Consultant to the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations. Thank you for joining us. And I also thank Josef Kradovchvil, who is the president of the Industrial Property Office of the Czech Republic, and of course, Professor Martin Fusek, the president of the Research Council of the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry. I also thank all the attendants who have joined us online and to all those present here. I believe that many of the topics should be further elaborated upon, and I do hope that they'll be treated by expert media and also by other roundtable discussions. I also thank the Association of Innovative Pharmaceutical Industry and the EFPIA for the organization of this roundtable. Thank you very much and have a good day.